Hello W200 students. Here is an example of what you can submit for your screencasting badge. Remember, you should use something like Screencastify, Screencast-O-Matic, or if you're on a Mac, use QuickTime to record this screencast. And if you have any difficulties with the technical side, definitely feel free to let your AI know or stop by the TTL so that we can help you with the technical side of creating and recording a screencast. But for the actual content of the screencast, you should find one of the content exploration resources that we talked about this week. And then you should use our 4E's checklist, which you can get at bit.ly/4, the number, 4E checklist. And there's a link to that along with the announcements for this week as well. So use that checklist to talk about the resource that you found and talk about how it could be useful or beneficial in your future classroom. And your screencast should be around 1 minute to 2 minutes long. You don't need to go much longer than that. But basically you're talking about what's the resource you found, how it could be used in your future classroom, and you're using the checklist to do that. So for example, let's say I am a middle school life science teacher, and so I am going to look at these 7th grade science activities here. So I would talk about how the general questions on the 4E's checklist, they're asking about, are the learning objectives clear? Where does the resource come from? What are the usage requirements? Is the content current? And so I would start out by talking about those 4 questions, and I would mention how, yes, the learning objectives are clear because you can see here it's broken down by topic area, and then within that you have the different topics or objectives that students would be able to do based on the activity here in IXL. So for example, after completing this activity, students would be able to use data to describe climates. So yeah, the learning objectives are clear. And then I could also talk a little bit about how this tool comes from IXL Learning. You can always go to the About Me page of most websites, company info, to find out a little bit about whatever resource you're reviewing. The usage requirements and limitations, make sure you take a look at is the resource you're looking at something that can be used on iPads, on mobile phones, on tablets? Does it have to just be used on a web browser? Do people need an internet connection to use it, or is it something that can be done offline as well? So those are the types of questions to think about there. And then, is the content current, relevant, and accurate? You should spend some time actually exploring the resource to make sure that it is actually up to date and relevant, because as you know so far in class, technology changes very quickly and things aren't always the most up to date and relevant. So that's important to check on. After you talk about those things, you should spend a little time talking about the 4E's: effectiveness, efficiency, enhancement, and engagement. So for this example, I would actually want to look at some of these activities. You'll notice that I can hold my mouse over them and get a preview of the activity. That's great for efficiency. That's going to save teachers time. They don't have to actually go in and test out each of these. They get a preview of the skill just by holding the mouse over it. Awesome. That's great. Effectiveness, we're talking about are things aligned with standards and objectives to help students reach their learning goals more quickly? And I sort of already addressed that earlier, but yes, these are definitely something where a teacher could have their standards and say, oh yeah, I'm supposed to teach about genotype and phenotype today. That's right here. Perfect. So that definitely increases the effectiveness of this resource as well. Enhancement, now some of the things here are something that could be done without technology. Labeling the earth layers. If I jump into this activity and start, what you'll see is that I'm just dragging in, it's essentially a matching activity here. And so while this might be somewhat interactive, it's really nothing that you couldn't do without technology. You'd have a word bank, you'd have the blank spaces, the students would write them in on a worksheet. It does save time and money because the teacher doesn't have to create it, so that ties into the efficiency. But for the enhancement, you would want to look for things that couldn't be done without technology. So things that were like science simulations would be a great way if they had any of those in here. So you would kind of want to look through and see, like, are what the resources here are doing, are they just something that I could do normally with a worksheet, with paper, or are they actually like more interactive? Are they showing me something that I couldn't be seen without technology? Is it doing a science lab where it would be too expensive or too impractical to actually do in the classroom? Something like that would be great to see here for these standards. And then the last one, engagement. Is this going to get students interested and hooked and excited about the material? So like if we go into one of these and look at it, it's a word question, you're writing your answer. This is really not that much different than a worksheet. It's not going to get students particularly excited or engaged. Now, if you're looking at some of the Nearpod PhET simulations, PhET simulations, those are a lot more interactive. They've got animations. Something like that might be a little more engaging than just a simple word problem here. So make sure that you spend time exploring the entire resource. Like, I would want to look at all of these different possibilities, because yes, a lot of what this is doing is just a digital worksheet, which can definitely be beneficial, but it might not be as enhancing or engaging as some other resources. So that should be what you strive for in the screencast that you create, is to find one of those content exploration resources, talk about it using the 4E's checklist, and then when you're done, make sure to upload it to YouTube with your EDUC Gmail account, and then that's the link that you will submit on Canvas to earn your badge for this activity. And of course, stop by the TTL or email your instructor if you have any questions or difficulties at all.